Yeah, so greetings to you all, comrades. It's a pleasure once again to join us on our usual Saturday conversation, where we do have a conversation around Africa, but with an intention, with the purpose of the unification of Africa. So today we'll be looking at the youth empowerment in Africa. And our intention is, even in that conversation, is towards how does it link to the unification of Africa. That will be a key thing. But generally, we do discuss three things, which is our focus: the liberation of Africa, the unification of Africa, and the development of Africa. So today we'll have a general conversation on what's the status of the youth of the continent, how they are, what needs to be done. Are there more empowerment that's needed? And are they geared towards the unification of Africa as a conversation? And those are the discussion we are intending to have today. But before that, permit me to get to know what's going on across with our members who are present so far. Sorry, Sister Ida. Sister Ida, how are you? And what's going on wherever you are? Sister Ida?
Sorry. I'm fine. What's going on? Well, we had a reparation and movement march yesterday. It's to do with the 1st of August is always, I think it's not Independence Day, but it's like Emancipation Day. And also for us in Britain, it's people meet at Windrush Square, which is like almost become a square for Black empowerment, I would say. And so they march from Brixton, Windrush Square, to Parliament, and then back. They have a little, a few speeches and things, and then they march back to Brixton. But yesterday, as they reached Westminster Parliament, it started to rain, so I don't think there were that many speeches. But then they went back to Brixton, and there were meant to be speeches and things there. It ended up being more of a musical festival, but by 8 o'clock, the first speech at least started. After that, I'd gone, but I'm not sure if there were more speeches. So that was interesting. All I can tell you is, a bit like Kenya, the weather here is a bit uncertain. Like it's a bit chilly for summer, and 1 minute we've got a lot of rain, then we've got the sun comes out, but it's not been as hot as it was about a month ago. So those are the main things that are happening over here that I can tell you about. I look forward to hearing what else is going on.
Thank you, Sister Ida. Thank you for that update. I think that's what's going on in London. Yeah, let's hear what's going on where Sister Chisomo is. Sister Chisomo, how are you? And what's going on where you are?
I live in two countries, so I get confused as to which one I should be talking about. So anyway, over here, it's always cold. Scotland is always cold. Rain. A little sun comes at 8 o'clock at night. So about 8 o'clock, it will become very, very bright, as if it's 12 midday. Otherwise, it's quiet. As of my country, we are a month away from elections, a few weeks. And exciting times. I was worried about violence and all sorts of things going on. But the candidates were submitting their papers, their nomination papers, giving speeches and telling us who their running mates is going to be. So a running mate is always a surprise. So they tell us on the day when they're giving speeches to say, oh, my running person, meaning who is going to be the vice president if they win, is so and so. Some people, the vice presidents didn't turn up. Some people's paperwork was not complete. And these are people standing to run the country. And some had nothing to say. Some vice presidents didn't know what the manifesto is saying or what their issues are that they're going to address as a government. And they all came in style. Some came in tractors to show that they are one of us. Some came on Kabaza. Kabaza is the motorbike. Some came on, on lorries and some on minibuses. And so they all changed their lifestyles when it comes to elections. They live their posh lives and start pretending they live like us. The Ruto style of presentations. So yeah, but they've come up with surprising vice presidents. This time, everybody seems to be going for professionals, not popular politicians and things like that. But the country wants to go back to the leader they ousted last time and did a rerun over him, saying he's rigged the elections, blah, blah, blah. So they want him back. But he's elderly now and almost frail. But they're saying they still want him back. But he's chosen a good candidate in terms that she's a very highly professional, experienced person. She was formerly a judge, and then she was formerly the chair of the election that was contested and had a rerun. So she's gone for that person, meaning, if you mean to get me back, we continue from where we stopped. So that's where we're at the moment. But all the vice presidents are very controversial. We had one young pigeon who was also wanted to run as a president, but because of his age, he did not qualify. He's currently 34. So he wanted to lobby for the constitution, for the law to be changed. That didn't work. They didn't even allow him to present anything. But I'm glad to see that today he's decided to run as an MP, which he qualifies for. So he can be inside whilst he's contemplating his leadership contest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sister Ida? Sister Ida, can you hear me? Sister Ida?
Sorry, yes. Sorry.
Can you step in for around 5 minutes to just get updates from members, and then I'll be coming in.
Oh.
Just call their name. So I'm done with this and the Sister Grace. You can take other updates from other members in the maybe 2 minutes per person or 1 minute, then we can come to the conversation.
Okay. Brother Bernie, could you tell us what's been going on with you? If you'd like to unmute. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, come again.
Could you tell us, we're meant to be telling what's been going on in the countries we're in. So maybe you could give us an update of what's happening around you. I'm just going down the list.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ida. Yeah, I am here in the KwaZulu-Natal capital, Pietermaritzburg. And generally, it's very cold. I think we are in the last month of the winter. On the country at large, it hasn't been easy for the past month with, I always don't want to use the word xenophobia, but attacks on illegal immigrants. And then it has even gone to the height that African immigrants are not allowed to public hospitals. Either they will use the private, and even some are pushing that children should not attend public schools. So the dynamics of these things, sometimes we don't know the source of it. Because Africans are not the only immigrants in South Africa. But then why is it that they become the very target? And I have been questioning a lot of people that if you tell me that a Swatini or Swazi person, you tell me that somebody from Lesotho, somebody from maybe Tangan or Benda from Mozambique, including Zimbabweans are strangers, because the king of Zulu, his uncle is the king of Eswatini, you see. And then the people of Free State, they go all the way to Lesotho to bow to the king there. So to tell me that they are foreigners, personally, I have a problem which I have been contesting and arguing with people. Even this afternoon, I was arguing with somebody, you see. So in South Africa, if you don't have a white skin color or a light skin color, it's a problem. Yeah, it's a big problem, because that's why I said that I don't know who is funding these kind of things, because it's not everybody that is in for it. But I mean, those who also have grouped themselves on this path, who is actually pushing them, because they don't work, they spend their whole day doing these things. So if they spend their whole day doing it, it means somebody is feeding them, somebody is supporting them. And where is that coming from? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's good to hear what you're saying. But I really also would have liked to hear you say if there was any sort of national uprising against what is going on. Are there people really speaking out loud in public, like on the news and everything? Could you tell us about that?
Excuse me, like this afternoon, a young guy I talked to, I know it's somebody who has a lot of information, but you see, he is against it, but at the same time, he feels that it is politically motivated. That was what he is saying. And he is even, there's a case of our police minister who has been suspended pending certain a whole number of allegations of involving himself with criminal. I mean, this international criminal, you see. So some are feeling that those who are into these narcotics and crime are diverting attention from them by also instigating this type of attacks, you see, to divert issues. But at the same time also, I think it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, because we keep asking, but in fact, I think you've told me more than I've heard so far, because people just seem to say they don't know it's happening, but you know, so it's good to hear you tell us more. Thank you.
Can I comment on that one?
Somebody's got their hand up. Oh, Sister Grace.
Yes. Yes, on that one, I've been very keen, following it very keenly. Ramaphosa has spoken against it a number of times, and a few other people and the police, they've confronted the woman on the road, on the streets, and a group of them, and they have arrested a few. And but there's one guy who comes from the colored community. He's one of the government, well, he's one of the parliamentaries. I don't know which party he belongs to. I can't remember his name. He speaks about it in parliament against the foreigners. So he could be the one working with the Dudula people. And obviously Dudula is funded by someone. Usually it will be the opposition. So, and the way they go about it, 1 minute it's illegally. When they are caught, they'll say, no, we're looking for illegal immigrants. When in fact, they're just looking for any black foreigner. Because when they turn up on a shop or they turn up on anything, they round up every black person there. They recognize that is not South African. Because it's very easy to tell who is South African and who is not amongst the black people. So then they ask the Asians, then they arrest the Asian, the owner of the shop. Why are you employing foreigners instead of employing us? So that's the other issue. Why are you employing them and not us? And then they'll take them as well, saying, oh, the government will deal with you, when it's all lies. And then yesterday I watched another video. They turned up on a shop where the owner was a white-looking guy, because white people are in variations, isn't it? And they're not all from Europe. So anyway, so this guy is a huge guy, standing and putting his hands in the pockets, obviously to reach out for something if they start causing problems. So these guys have noticed he kept his hands in his pockets. So they're asking him. So he goes, what do you want? He says, oh, we want to see the people working in your shop. Why? Are they from this time? They're not even saying, are they foreigners? They're saying, are they from here? Meaning, are they local to that town? So the man says, yes. So he says, no, we know them. They're not from here. They're from mentioning other areas within South Africa. They're only coming here to rent, they said. So now they've turned into saying, even if they're South Africans, they must be local, not from another town coming here to rent and work, because the jobs are supposed to be for them. So he says, oh, so you want me to let them go and then employ you? Oh, no, that's not what I mean. He says, but what do you mean? I've just told you they're from here, they live here. What do you want? And it carried on, and then in the end, they left. So they're just troublemaker, like our colleague is saying. They spent the whole day doing this, I don't know. Obvious. And then there was another video of them fighting because they hadn't been paid for all the rounds they've made. So they were fighting amongst themselves and trashing their houses for their bosses, trashing their houses, saying, oh, they haven't been paid for going to harass people. So it's such a silly. And the woman who was pregnant has had a child. The police had to escort her to the hospital to have her child. So it's a very, very sad situation. And when they were asking the white man to say, who are these people you've recruited, they did not ask him where he's from and how he ends up in South Africa. He could be an illegal immigrant himself. He could be a settler who came in by whatever means. They don't question him because he's got a white skin. They don't go for the colored people. I'm sorry if colored offends some people, but that's how we call them, coloreds. They don't ask the colored people if they are or not. And then somebody asked a question. They said, okay, so they've evicted all these people because they're evicting all the Asians that recruit foreigners. So they said the shops are now open. Why haven't they gone in and started trading? Because they're claiming you're taking our jobs, you're taking our shops, you're taking our businesses. They're still not trading. They're just chasing people around. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Grace. Brother Bernie, I see you've got your hand up. Did you want to?
You see, there's one particular political party which has actually also focused their energy against African immigrants in particular. That is Patriotic Party, and it is their leader who is also the Minister of Arts and Culture and Sport. You see, in fact, they work together with the Dudula people because the Dudula wanted to use them to get access to parliament or some political role. But unfortunately, it hasn't worked. The expectation hasn't been met. But I think they are still pushing ahead with these attacks with more of a political leaning than anything else. You see, then when it comes to the whole situation in South Africa, our sister said that actually they are not driving people to be able to take over. And the problem is that once you are black in South Africa, in fact, banks will not support you in anything that you want to do, unless you get the family members or you have some political connection that there are some certain other funds. But it's not easy even to get to those funding. You see, because the conditions and the requirements cannot be met by the majority of the youth who may want to do something. And so long as the land, still 70% is in the hands of private people, which means the farmlands and lands which actually should have been under custodianship, under traditional leaders or under the government, are still in the private, are still assigned as private property, a kind of feudal system transported to Africa. In fact, it will be very difficult to stop these things, because then the natives don't have any way to raise capital to even say that I want to start a shop. I mean, foreigners who come here, they come with money. So they are able to do all these things. But then if you are native, you don't have any access to capital. In fact, it's very, very, very bad situation. But then we cannot resolve that here today. Yeah, and I don't know whether there's even a solution in sight. Because the way things are going, I don't think with the America backing the whites and these supremacists, this land issue is going to be resolved now or in the near future. Personally, I don't expect that because other people, South Africa natives, are willing to sacrifice certain things because then there will be sanctions and all those things coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see we have two others from South Africa here. And
So, Ida,
are you ready? Are you? I was just going to. Mhm. I'm listening.
she said that I'm back.
You're back. Okay. Well, I was going to ask, we've only done really two people since you left, but I was going to, General Anunnaki was next on the list, and then I was going to ask Brother Sam, but I'm going to pass it on to you to carry on. Is that all right?
Topic because of time.
Yes.
We might take updates later, but because of time, let's go
Okay.
straight to our topic of the conversation for today.
Okay, good. Have people come in who are going to start?
Yes,
Who are
so
going to talk?
yeah, so thank you, Sister Ida.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all for your help in telling us what's going on. Bye for now.
So thank you very much, members who have joined us. I see many members who have joined us in between. So thank you very much. We might have to go straight to our conversation today about youth empowerment in Africa. And our first speaker will be Kadini Amani. Kadini Amani, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and share with us what you think in regards to this topic. And I see also our members from One Map Africa Continental Unity Party are here with us. If you wish to say something on this topic, just raise your hand so that we'll go to you. Then we'll open the conversation for members to contribute to this. So, Kadini, please go ahead. Kadini, unmute yourself. Feel free to introduce yourself. Then you can go ahead and share your thoughts on this topic for today.
Greetings, comrades.
Yeah, greetings.
Greetings.
And clear.
Yeah, greetings. This is Kandini Amanu from Ghana. I've been listening to the conversation since I joined. And yes, we are always talking about the right things as Africans. And no doubt about that. We are always sharing our views on what is happening to the continent and we, the people in it. But for me, the letter I would like to share, or the light I would like to throw from the East Assange energy to the rest of the dimensions of this plane is simple. If we as people who have Africa as heart want to see good conditions in our country, we cannot use the train of the slave master. We cannot use the ship of the slave master, because if we go in, everything in there is in full control of all of us who have entered it, because they know how they built it. The current political system in Africa imposed upon us that we use to choose leadership is not the kind familiar with Africa. It's foreign. And for that matter, every time we spend almost all our energies saying if we are able to get hold of this system called the political office, we will be able to transform the country. And the more we do, the more we enter into the zone of the trap already set for us to continue eternal perpetuation of slavery or colonialism, or its new colonialism. So, what can we do? Each and every voice capable of always speaking loud against what is meted upon the African people, we should raise ourselves in our own communities. Let us adopt communities. If you are in one country, you think it is not easy to adopt a community and you raise the people there as your students, which we used to do. So we build the society through our actions in our various localities. And that is why we say communism started in Africa, of which Chairman Mao has some stint with Nkrumah's idea, and he established it for the Chinese people. And today they are benefiting from it. Because you can only raise a people, a country, a nation, a continent, and the universe. You can only do that if everything is in harmony. And the harmony begins right from within ourselves individually. Then it should affect our own living place. There must be evidence of our living in where we stay. And then that triggers to link up with other same people in the same dimensions. And then freedom on the ground is attained, because freedom that is built upon the structures of the colonial master can never stand against the colonial master. So yes, most often we come and already, even this gadget we are using right now to communicate, we can say, or I can say, we have no control, full control of its connectivity, and who is even created.
Sorry for cutting you short. Are you giving
Okay.
a comment, or are you presenting on the topic?
Yes, I am presenting on a topic.
Okay, go ahead.
I am presenting on a topic for the fact that we've been creating rhetorics like the theaters of the Greek democracy, which is now playing itself in our continent. So if we...
The topic is about youth empowerment in Africa.
Exactly. So if we want to empower our youth, life is fulfilling the circles of what is needed, and that is freedom. Ability to join the youth together, so that if in marriage, they can have quality marriage. If it is communal spirit of uniting to do a particular work, once we are located in the various places we stay and we are relating to the youth. If you are in a country that you cannot do that, you go to Africa country that opportunity is, so that we can build up by living in localities and building the youth from there, teaching them how to grow their own food, helping them how to create their own clothing, helping them to understand how they can create their own economic system on the ground. This is the only way we can create sustainable youth empowerment in Africa. I am Kandini Amanu from Ghana. Thank you. Moderator, I know if you listen to what I was attempting to explain from my point of view of how we can empower the African youth, then you know that the speeches we've been created to be using on podiums are not what is going to transform Africa and African youth. Human learn through structures and practical ground activities. And for that matter, all of us who know the way we want to Africa to go should have locality and build. This has a name in Africa, which maybe sometime later, if we are going to it, I can share. So practically, if we are able to individually create a kind of this centers across our own localities, and then we are linking up with people who are part of the practical activity, and we are linking such people out, and not that we are talking to appeal to them to follow a concept we think is best for Africa. That is the way we can practically empower the African youth. It does not matter our number and how we started. What matters is taking data and increasing our number in every locality. Then we can free African youth and empower them and give them something they can do, something they can trust, something when you and I are not here today, they can still follow, and it will not be easy for the oppressor to hijack again because it is on the ground empowerment. And grounding is important in every policy and project that anybody has to carry out. Africa must go back. Sankofa de Payenchi. Africa must go back and take what is good, what belongs to us, if we call for Pan-Africanism. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kandini. Yes, indeed. I look at the African youth and the status of where they are, how they are, and what type of empowerment would the African youth need. I agree that African youth will need, whether you call it political empowerment, economic empowerment, social empowerment, but I also think the African youth must be empowered with knowledge. And right knowledge, not the colonial education, the right knowledge about themselves, their history, and the struggle that you must weigh, and the need and the benefit for Africa unification. But we'll open up the conversation for other members also to share what they think in regards to this topic. Then we'll come back to any question or anything that might come up. Any other member want to discuss anything in regards to this topic, Africa youth empowerment? Sister Grace, please go ahead.
No, it's just a question for now. What's the definition of youth in every one of our countries? Or what age group are we talking about?
Now, the standard English talks about English, not our mother tongue. I don't know if we have the word youth in mother tongue. Maybe we'll look at that. But the standard English defines youth as anybody below age 35. Not anybody at age 35. Anybody below age 35. But unless, if there's any definition in our traditional languages, then we can share.
Thank you, because I see a lot of people saying, oh, we've got a word for it. But everybody, people who are over 35 and whatever, just because they look younger than the oldest leader, they call themselves youth. And you just wonder. So misleading, a lot of misleading things, these politicians. Anyway.
Thank you. Do you have any input on how you think the African youth should be empowered?
Sorry, who did you ask?
Sister Grace.
Sorry, I didn't. Well, as the previous speaker explained, as long as the systems and the structures are there for them to access and participate and learn and input and practice, then we can empower them. But in a vacuum, I'm not sure they're learning anything, or they're just copying what other politicians are doing who are not youth, like I said earlier. There don't seem to be anything. I can only speak about my country. There don't seem to be anything that you can say youth programs or youth this or youth that, because it's overtaken by these people who keep calling themselves youth in my country is Achinyamata. So everybody calls themselves Achinyamata. So you don't know who the youth is or which youth they're talking to. As a result, the real youth haven't got a voice. They haven't got any involvement whatsoever, or even political involvement. They can support them. They can use them for dancing and hacking each other with pangas in the demonstrations. Only when there's demonstration, that's when you see them come. Or when there's a rally, they round them up, give them T-shirts and caps to go and clap, and that's about it. So I don't know.
Okay, thank you, Sister Chisom, because one thing is that, as Sankara says, that there cannot be liberation without the liberation of women, because women are all half of the continent, The same can be said about the youth of this continent. As long as the youth of this continent are not liberated, we cannot claim any liberation in the continent. Now look at them in the country or where you come from. They're the majority. Do they control even means of income financially? They're the beggars in the street. They're the people being used by politicians for political deeds. The continent in the Pan-African space, where we discuss a lot of Pan-Africanism. What role or how active are youth in that conversation? Are they informed of the struggle we are talking about, repatriation, restitution? Do they know or engage deeply on the Pan-Africanism? If you mention those who are globally known as speaking Pan-Africans, you can talk of PLO Lumumba, Bishop Maponga, Adekale Chiombora. Are they youth you can talk about who are also taking the mantle? Look at politically. The continent has come up with the rules of age that block young people from even being leaders. In fact, majority of them are not even anywhere close to political positions, which means the policy that are being made in Africa, where the majority are young people, the young people do not participate into that. Go beyond that to social structures. Where are the youth of Africa today? Are they really going to gear us towards the unification of Africa? Or they are busy in Netflix, Showmax, and the series? And little do they even read about our Pan-African struggle. Little do they even give into this. But also, there's a positive side. Look at the youth, for example, in Kenya. They went to protest against the finance bill. It's a good thing. But do they understand the systematic issues beyond the protest so that they can be able to tackle the systematic roots of this system? So there's a lot that we need to look at that and see how do we empower the youth of Africa. Let me hear what Brother Ifo has. Brother Ifo?
Yes, solidarity greetings to you all, family. I was just at a family event in a community where there was a new child, so they're just a few weeks old. And so this discussion is very pertinent because I'm reflecting on what kind of what kind of society would we have for this child when they are no longer a child and now a youth, whatever that age group is. When we talk about, there's a famous saying that you cannot give what you do not have. And I think, unfortunately, the generation before us, and some of us in my generation, I was born in the early 70s, have inherited a culture that is not liberating. We've inherited a culture of ignorance and arrogance about our ignorance, and also a culture of dependency that the colonial systems are set up for us, and a system of divide and conquer, almost like what they call crabs in a bucket. And the few that have chosen to pay attention to the ways of the ancestors and the Pan-African spirit and the spirit of Ubuntu, Umoja, and Sankofa operate differently and think differently and are grounded differently. But unfortunately, my experience is that those of us who think about community and who think about empowerment are often laughed at by our own people as being somewhat ignorant or not realistic. So I think before we get to empowering our youth, we need to empower the older people who are no longer youth to actually understand that the path to liberation is not fruitless and that it is possible. We need to empower the ideology of the elders in order for them to be able to help to assist in the process. And then we also need to work, I think, collectively on listening, because I think there are a lot of elders who believe that the youth should be seen and not heard, which is very disempowering way of engaging. Now I see a lot of hope in the youth. I have recently started getting engaged with some youth back home who are members of a political party called MOP, which is Movement of the People. It was started by Fela Kuti, and the depth of wisdom and the depth of analysis of both domestic and global issues that these youth are sharing is very, very refreshing, and it gives me a lot of hope. I wish more youth were engaged on that level. So I think that we just, as has been said earlier, we haven't particularly created spaces for them to be able to flourish adequately. There have been those in society who have created paths for our youth to do um, things that are destructive to the society. They make that easy, but we seem to make it really, really challenging for them to do honest and revolutionary stuff. But in spite of that, some of them are still going ahead and doing it. So I am both I'm, I guess, pessimistically optimistic, because I know how much work we have to do, especially around those whose brains have been colonized by religion, whether that be the religion from the Arab world, the religion for European world, and also the colonial miseducation system, which causes people to disrespect our ancestors and respect everything that's foreign. So I think those key things are things that we need, that I believe that once we identify them as problems, we might be able to solve them. But I think a lot of our societies are thinking that the solution is either in Western education or Arab indoctrination. And once we learn to be guided by ourselves with self-respect, I think we have a path towards empowering our youth. But that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brother Ifo. I think you brought the element of education again. They said it was miseducation of Negroes. But did that miseducation stop? It is still the miseducation of even the younger generation, the miseducation of our generation. And I had somebody somewhere was saying that a black man was asking, he was asked, have you ever been in prison? And he said, yes, I'm still in prison trying to run away from this system that is trying to enslave me and trying to put me in prison. So I'm not yet free. I might be free physically, but mentally I'm not free. So the miseducation, today the younger generation still have also received the same miseducation. And it's a high time that we must realize that. But the problem, as you are raising, Brother Ifo, even the generation before us was also miseducated. So are we aware of ourselves before we guide and help empower the younger generation? Or will we empower them in the ways of the Western system, the ways we have also walked through, the ways we have lived with? Will you tell them that the best place to be is in Europe, in America, and the best job to do is to go abroad and work there, and the best course to take is to be a doctor and maybe go out there, get more salaries? Will you tell them that the best clothes to put on must come from Italy and the rest? This is the big question in the conversation. So, Sister Ida, please come in.
Thank you. I'm glad Sister Grace asked the question of what age are we considering as youth? Because I remember asking it the same question within the last 3 months, and to some people, the age bracket stops for youth would be 30. And why I'm bringing this up is that I think that from 30 onwards, 30, 35, people start getting their feet under, being prepared to really argue about things. And I think that there should be a different name for that bracket. Up to 30. I mean, even when I was young, 35. Why not? Why not be still youth? But I think that the real youth, we need to sort of really start working at the people at the younger age. From 30 onwards, most people have they've struggled through youth and they're starting to fight on their feet. They're starting to get their money. They're starting to do lots of things. If it's to do with being, what's the word? Seeking to do political things or seeking to challenge systems. 30 onwards, people will do that. Before that, they're sort of still grappling with youth, proper youth, you know, universities, just schools, all those sorts of things. So in a way, I would like to see us suggest that there should be maybe a difference in age groups. They're still young, but some people are young enough to be owning houses at 30 to 35, or getting big jobs, getting them big money. And I think that though I have nothing against anybody being called youth, even if they want to be 49, I think we just have to be a bit more realistic and try and help the real youth. And I was hoping that we'd hear some of that in today's talk, that we would hear ways of which we could empower people who just don't necessarily have the money, but, you know, still have dreams of being not in the same brackets when they reach 30, 35. So I hope that others will also talk about that. Or dreams that we could have to really empower young people, because not everybody will go to university. Not everybody will know things at even at the age of 30. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ida. Of course, there have been conversation between adult and a youth. Who is an adult and who is a youth? That's a conversation we can have as well. But to you, Sister Ida, what is an empowerment to you? What is type of empowerment you're looking for, or you hope we could discuss? An empowerment like?
An empowerment like the fact that not all youth will go to university. So how can we help them to succeed at a later age, just as much as those who have gone to university? For instance, in the past, there were things like night schools for people or for workers. You know, I think that we need to be helping the youth to find their feet. And when I say youth, I now consider only within the last 6 months, in my head, I now consider youth to be under 30. I think after 30, people are really growing and striving and can do whatever they want to a certain extent, because they have more empowerment within themselves to succeed. I think under that age, the empowerment isn't as strong and isn't necessarily addressed by their schools or people in power. So yeah, like extra education, which even in this country, even in Britain, they've stopped a lot of the adult education that there was. People could go, and even people who you'd think, but these lots should still be at school, because they were so disruptive at school, they were going to adult education institutions, so that they felt that, you know, they had the power to decide what they wanted, and no teacher was going to tell them to sit down and be quiet. You know, so they could try their hands at whether it was carpentry, bricklaying, auto mechanics, or whatever. All those sorts of things are now being got rid of. At the end of Thatcher's years in power, she had managed to rob a lot of schools and higher institutions of things like their mills, their engineering mills, and they were all the mills were sold off to China. Hence how they became a big industry in their own right and could sell to the rest of the world. But a lot of those machines came from her sort of shutting down. And the Tories have continued and continued. Now they're not in power. Labour's doing nothing to bring back helping people to learn in a non-traditional fashion. And that's what I'm talking about for youth, helping them learn in a non-traditional fashion, not necessary at school, but helping them forge a path forward and not just have to be dependent on what older people say to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ida. Anybody want to share their thoughts? Feel free to raise your hand. I'll go to Sister Tapua. Sister Tapua.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the contributions that have been made so far. I'm going to take a slightly different path. I started off by thinking of what we mean by empowering. And my analysis of what empowering means is giving the ability to decide, to action, to create. And if we're talking about Africa, then we're saying for the good of Africa and the people of Africa, for Ubuntu. In other words, we're saying we're not just empowering our youth for skills that are going to be exploited by the capitalist. For them to survive in this current environment, yes, they need those skills. There's no denying it. But we need that which makes a person to be imbued to our youth, because a lot of them have lost what it means to be Munu. And it is by acquiring that, by understanding what Ubuntu is, you can then go ahead and have your PhD. It doesn't matter. You can go ahead and do your carpentry course. It doesn't matter. You can go ahead and be your farmer, because everybody matters. But the system that we are in categorizes us into a hierarchy. And that hierarchy brings a lot of dissatisfaction to our youths, to such an extent that we label and empower youths depending on certification. So that those people who don't qualify to attain a certain certificate don't feel empowered. They're totally disempowered and they have to find their own way. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to empower someone, you must have the ability to give them the power. In the current institutions that we have, in terms of governance, are we saying our leaders are in a position to empower when they have to go with a begging bowl to Donald Trump? How are they going to empower our youths for the benefit of us as Africans if they are singing to the tune of the neo-colonial masters? And it's also really important that we understand how the West is threatened by African youth. Just the presence of African youth.
Sister Tapua, I can't hear you. Can somebody hear Sister Tapua?
Hello?
No, I can't hear you.
Now we can
You
hear
can
you.
hear. Oh, all right. No, I've just been saying, what we need to understand when we're talking about empowering is, if our leaders are going to Trump with a begging bowl and being given conditions, in what way are they as adults as empowered so that they're able to empower our youths? In other words, what we are hoping for as Africans, that Africa is going to prosper, it's unlikely, because to empower, to give someone power, you have to have the power yourselves. And our leaders do not have that power. And then I was saying, the neo-colonialists are threatened by our youths, not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of resilience, in terms of the go-get spirit, in terms of general intellectual endowment. This is why, for example, they try to attract our youths to get scholarships to go to Silicon Valley, to go to all these places. And it is our youths that got America to where it is today. Even as enslaved people, they didn't get the old people, they got the youth. And that has gone on, and it continues to go on. And it will continue to go on as long as our leaders are manipulated. Therefore, what I'm saying is, for us to empower our youths, we've got to make sure that our elders are empowered to make the decisions. Like, look at the Burkina Faso situation. It's somebody who was empowered enough to make sure they grab the power and pass it on. Otherwise, we're not going to go anywhere with the Rutos. We're not going to go anywhere with these guys that are being called in groups of 4 to America. I also think that there was an interesting points that were raised about the definition of youth. And for this, I have sankophad. Youth in the African context was something that was really difficult to define just by its very nature. This person is neither an adult nor a child. But in the African context, we had initiation where there was a realization that this person is not a child anymore, but they are not quite an adult. And therefore, you grow into an adult. You're initiated. You're told what it means to be an adult. You then practice being an adult until you yourself are ready. So, particularly when we're talking about youth, we're running into the danger of being directed by the language of our erstwhile. Because using that language is going to make us lose our way. But if we are talking about initiating our grown-up children into young adults, and we start talking to them about Africa, about what it means to be Africa, about why we are where we're at, then we will begin to have an empowered youth, because our power has not been lost because we're not educated. Our power has been lost because we don't know who we are. If we get back to knowing who we are, get back to knowing what our history is, get back to knowing what our potential is, just getting back our youths to realize that the size of Africa is humongous. We will take in both North America and South America and Europe and you name it into this continent. So basics like that. What I thought could be an action point is, I know, for example, there are Christian groups that have taken up this idea of initiating, where they can pass out and say, you're initiated in the African way of doing things. And in this, as Pan-Africanists, we're going to be telling our children their history. They're going to know who they are. They're going to know why it is that we are where we're at, so that we are not faced with children who aspire to be anything else but African. Because the concept of the word youth is Western. So initiation is paramount. And the best initiation is when kids see examples. Are we, the adults, examples of what our youth would aspire to be? I think that's where we're going to come in. Because if you are within a community and you're a symbol of what our kids see as African and see as what they could be, then there's no better initiation than that. And that also means that as Africans, because if we're talking about empowering, giving power to youth to decide. We now want to acknowledge that youth is a symbol of hope. Youth is a symbol of vitality. Youth is a symbol of strength, and our youth is our future. Therefore, when we're talking about Africa, we're talking about our youth leading in the charge to reclaim Africa. Because at 60 plus, 70 plus, we've done our bit. We now want to hand over the baton to the young people who are resilient, who are full of hope, so that they continue the charge, so that they instill the ideas of Ubuntu and not be individualistic. This, for me, brings me to 2 points that I think came out of the discussion. I think my sister was talking about empowering youths who might not be as gifted intellectually as others. I'm seeing this as having two divisions here. We've got empowering for political liberation and governments, and then we've got empowering for the success of the individual. And that brings me to, what do we call success? Because our youth are beginning to think that success is having all this bling, success is having the latest car, success is making as much money as you can, as fast as you can, and we've got scammers amongst our youths. So we need to make sure that we help them to understand what success is. And as adults, we help to drive that idea. Because if we're thinking, if our kids are reading from us that to be successful means you've got to have money, then they will go out and try and make as much money as they can in the most atrocious ways as they can. So we really need to make sure that our youths are grounded. They understand who we are as Africans, the Ubuntu way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sister Tapua. Thank you. You pointed at two things that I would like to echo. Then I'll go to Brother Usu and Elder Sam. And then I'll come to Brother Ife. Anybody want to share anything in regards to this, feel free to raise your hand. We are still having around 40 or 50 minutes to go. Now, Sister Tapua, the concept of age, and you must realize the current education system was not present in our traditional African system. So our people did not take over 20 years to be in school. But to us, education was non-stop. Education was a continuous process till you die. And the younger generation, not young in terms of age, but even the older generation will learn to be somebody older than them. So in a community setup, elders who are 80 years have to teach the elders who are 70. So you can work until you die. But again, based on the absence of this education curriculum of the West that takes up to 20 years or 23 to be done with the university, at the age of when kids could start seeing their, whether you call the period or they grow up, what now they call either the adolescents. At that particular moment now, those generation was starting to be put into some education for roles. So if you are ladies or if you're a girl, you'll be taken to women who could teach you now how to start preparing to be a responsible woman, taking care of the family and everything else. That was the process of now being initiated to that. Once they know that either you had reached that your adolescent age. And men will also start to be groomed in that direction, which means in this so-called 30 years or 35 years that today we use to define youth, in African setup, that is somebody who is already having families and probably generations to come. And then the next thing we must also understand, when you're talking of the context of empowerment, our traditional African setup did not need this kind of empowerment we want to talk about today. Because young people will not need what you call a political empowerment. They were going through some processes for them to be part of the Council of Elders, for them to be part of whatever they want to be, even for them to be kings and whatever. There was a process. Economically or financially, once you grow of some age and you're being taught of your responsibility of a man and the rest, the next thing you have to do is to get a woman. Your parents could give you some portion of land. Start using the land as a property to take care of your family. They were not giving you a car or money because it wasn't there, but they're giving you a land as a means of production to take care of your family. Or you're being assigned some land, somewhere told, okay, you'll be doing this so that you can take care. You'll be taught about hunting for the community. So those are the processes we are going through. But in the current African setup today, where the younger generation takes up to 22 years to be done with the so-called formal education system, which you must also question, is it really possible or irrelevant for us to be in this so-called white education or miseducation for 22 years? Is it really beneficial to us? Because some of us will tell you that we took up to those years to finish university, while those of our friends who finished standard 8 primary school started to go to work directly. So they worked after primary school. You went to over 6 to 8 years for high school and university. You come back, this person has a family, this person has his means of survival and moving on. You come back to start looking for jobs. Now you have so many educated young people in the continent with the so-called white education with no jobs anywhere. And what do they do now? The Kenyan government says that they've exported 400,000 youths to go work abroad. So you end up having this scenario again in the continent, whereby now the government treats the educated as a source of foreign direct investment. So let's sell you out there so that you can get us some money so that you can develop. And we wait for what you call remittances and everything else. So these are also the current situations that we are facing as a continent. But what important also you've raised is there's very important role for us to teach our young people to know who they are. Because in a global society where everybody become what's called liberalization, if you don't know who you are, you'll always be confused and be directed to anything you'll be told. So it's the responsibility of the older generation to help the younger generation to know who they are, so that even if you're walking to that global society, you know yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, you don't know your bearing. You'll take anything that comes from global society as something good, as if there was nothing good in your society. So
Yeah,
just because, yes, you want to come in maybe a minute, then I give it to Brother Usu. Sister Tapua, I'm giving you a minute to come back if you want, and then I get to Brother Usu. If not, let me go to Brother Usu then.
Yeah, please let Elder Sam come and then
Okay.
before I come.
Okay, so let's go to Elder Sam. Now tell us about this so-called youth empowerment. You have them, you have seen them, you don't know who, get us to know who are these youth and what type of empowerment you as an elder will look off in regards to the continent of Africa now, where we are and where we are heading. Please, Elder.
Thanks, Brother Pidgin, and everybody in the platform. I think I've already made my input by saying, wow, Sister Tapua, what a great input. In my perspective, our sister has really crowned everything for me. And that is why I say to her, I wish she would have been in the study we had yesterday with Atesmatat, because they complement each other. And you know, brothers and sisters, you will not empower anybody in an environment that is nil for empowerment. You will empower them and they will have nothing to act upon that power that they have, because the environment is such that it is not going to. Last week here in South Africa, we had the leaders of the what they call the former liberation movement gathered here in South Africa. Most Southern African leaders were there, but even the others outside the continent were there. And the bottom line for them is there's a threat. The threat is coming from outside. We the liberation movement must still survive. We are the only people that can give our people freedom and liberation. Despite the 30 years or 40 years in Zimbabwe, I think more than that, we in South Africa were experiencing 30 years. The youth here in South Africa, 40% to 45% unemployed. And these leaders were sitting for a whole week, spending more money that should be empowering or doing other meaningful things. when they could just identify that we have failed the liberation war and the struggle. That was not the outcome. They say there's a threat from external powers that want to change the regimes and. Brothers and sisters, until we wake up to say we need an empowering environment, and that environment is in South Africa. Let me tell you the story of South Africa. We have a constitution that everybody said, what a wonderful constitution. But the first aspect that constitution does away is totally destroying the family as a group. In that constitution, there's a Bill of Rights where your kid, when you punish your kid in your house for wrongdoing, that child will stand up, go to the nearest police station, and you, the parent, you are going to be sued. When we grew up in this society, as young as we were, we would sit around the fire. Our elders would tell us and teach us the do's and the don'ts. And if you go astray, they would spank you. If they had to take a road, they would take a road. The same thing was happening in our schools. Right now in South Africa, the biggest trouble is in the schools where education must take place. There's more murders by one student against another student because not even the parents can say. So you will not empower these kids. When you start anything, if it's not what is fashionable, how they dress, you know, they walk on the streets almost with their underpants out. And this is fashion. The nearest thing out of that is what? That's why rape is high in South Africa. That's why murder is high in South Africa, because there's no order. So the environment will not empower anybody. The education is also not empowering our youth, because a university student still wants to seek, you know, with all the profession or degrees they have, they will still stand on a corner and say, I am a graduate, I need a job. So that studies that they did are not empowering them. And so we need to overhaul the whole colonial and neo-colonial system. And that is why we must marry what Ntate Matlane said about the Ubuntu villages and what Sister Tapua has given us today. I thank you.
Thank you, Elder Sam. Thank you very much for that. Yes, brother.
Yeah, I heard some. Okay, let's be coming now. Yes, I also want to congratulate our sister Tapua. In fact, I like it when I read on some, note that he really formed a team. In fact, I would say vintage. Comments that you have presented now. But what I want to add a little, not anything lengthy, is still to emphasize on the need for dismantling the current education system and then reinventing something that takes consideration of what we believe in and the geographic and our values and other things, which matters to us, especially our development, and how to also heal ourselves. And then what I also took from the first two presenters, and then Sister Ida also, is if we want to restructure, in fact, the imperative is very high, because Sister Ida said something. He said that we need a kind of education, or maybe both of them, Ida and Tapua, that an education which, and let me use the word homegrown, in the sense that it's not that Western style in a way, but a person can be trained within the community at home. Maybe he can even apprentice the father or an uncle, as we've known some of these things before. But then at a point, we say that unless you get a certificate from here and there, whatever you know is not valid. Even if you are looking for a job, it is not valid. Yeah. Upon that, what I see is that if we can, how can we reform rather? How can we bring about these reforms? Currently, what we need to note is that our education are funded by these same Western powers and partly also some from Asia. So who pays the piper calls the tune. In fact, much of the rubbish our children are learning in the schools are imposed because we've gone for this kind of fun. And the only way that they would want to joke with us is to make our children learn what we feel that they shouldn't learn. But then we've gone for the money. So they have the right to tell us that this is what you have to use my money to do. So if we can actually embark on any reform, in fact, we need to come to the stage where we should be ready to raise this money to reform our education. And it's not something which hasn't happened on this planet before. South Korea has such a history that after it came out from the Japan, they have to fund themselves. You see, they have to fund themselves. Currently, we see how much money goes into the churches. A whole lot of money that if these monies we are able to get people to understand, and these monies are directed towards a productive educational reform, I think this continent will be back into its leadership, maybe in about 20 to 30 years' time, because we have a generation who are ready, except that they are confused because they find that as much as they feel they want to do something, but the support is not there. And they also know that what they are learning is not helping them, because when they come out and you want to even employ any of them, you need to retrain them again at cost. So what kind of education is that? You see. So the need to actually change this system is imperative, or maybe even is becoming overdue. But then how to go about it and how to ensure that the country's embrace it also is another factor. But what I would suggest is that I think individually we have to start school whereby we have that ability and the capacity to actually start these private schools. I know that I heard it on SA years back on SAFM. I think they interviewed about 4 schools which they claim that they are Afrocentric. In fact, I don't know what actually they are teaching, but they claim that they are focusing more on the continental needs. You see, apart from that, if even they are a model, we need to improve that model that we are using if we can even have them and then study what actually they are delivering. But whatever we may say, I think we need to start from the private level, and then gradually, as we train people who also come into the system, they are able to come in and then influence policy in the future, because we may not be able to achieve everything now as we are talking. But then we start from somewhere whereby we plan, we start, and then gradually, the product of some of these schools are going to take the leadership. And it's the same method that these missionaries and who were serving their Western masters did. You see, they were not in a rush. But after 100 years, 50 years, and the rest, today Africa is overwhelmed with their teaching that even a whole professor who claims to be a professor doesn't know that something he is believing in is just hogwash. It's just rubbish. Because it's a system that he has to go through. And even though they have come to a level that we will say that, look, this person should not be a person that should be believing in something, which, or when he see a lie, he should be able to see a lie. But that is not working that way. You see. So I feel that if we start something on that approach, in the sense that we start private schools with the aim that we want to produce a future leaders. Certainly, we will get there. We will get there. We will get there. I think my brother from Ghana, you know that most of the Ghanaian private school today, they are established by the churches and the Christians. So if my son is going to a university college or is a private university, eventually he's going to be influenced with the same Christian doctrine, no matter what. So why don't we also begin a type of schools which actually deliver what the continent needs? Then I believe we can make an impact. Not immediately today, but with time, certainly it's going to work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Osu. Thank you for your contribution. We'll go to Brother Ifo, then Brother Kandini. We are still having around 28 minutes to go. So if there's anybody who want to come in, I want to hear from Sister Myra is here. I want to hear from our brothers from Africa Coordinator Unity Party. Sister Shaza is here. So any of you, Sister Amma is here. Any of you want to come in to speak, please raise your hand so that when I'm done with Brother Ifo and Brother Kandini, then you can come in. Brother Ifo?
Yes, a very important question was asked, and that was the question was about youth and what we're classifying. Because back in my day, at the age of, by people's mid-20s, they were getting married and having children, right? And so somebody who's gotten married and has children and has hit 30 and is under 35 might have a 10-year-old child. And then we have some people who are age 12, 14, 15, 16. And what they're experiencing and what they need is fundamentally different from someone in their mid-20s to early 30s. So I think that there is a need to be conscious of that. And then secondly, people develop at different rates. So I think it might also be important to reflect on what stage of life are they in, what challenges are they dealing with? Are they dealing with unemployment? Are they dealing with underemployment? Are they dealing with lack of skills? Or are they dealing with they have too much skills but no one's employing them? Are they dealing with lack of identity and understanding of who they are? There's a difference with trying to understand your identity and also raise a child from just trying to deal with just your identity without raising a child or a family. And then there's some people in their 20s who they're the ones who are taking care of their parents because their parents have some sort of disability. So they're the children that are in some level, they're youth, but they're also parenting. So I think that there's a need to expand that. And I also like what was mentioned about how are we looking at youth from a colonial lens of what youth is, or are we looking at trying to look at things back to the ways in which our ancestors looked at people at different stages of life, and how can we infuse that wisdom in how we bring up or nurture and guide the future generations. those were just some things that popped into my head. Now, as far as solutions, I love the idea of community economic development. I'm actively involved in cooperatives, especially worker-owned cooperatives. I think there's lots of things that we can do communally, so long as we're not trying to follow the capitalist way of doing business. And that is actually very empowering, because in the process of developing a worker-owned cooperative, the people get politically educated about a democratic way of running an enterprise, which is completely different from having a boss, where there is no boss because everyone are equal owners. So those are some things I think that we can move forward in as we try to build alternative solutions to this system that is killing us all. That's my story for now. Peace.
Thank you, Brother Ifo. And I think you're raising a very important thing again. Empower for power. Because when you talk that you empower youth to have the skills, that's power that you give to them. When you empower the youth to have the whatever knowledge you want, the right knowledge, that is power that you give to them. Whether it's economic, it's power. But again, we must ask ourselves the question Sister Tapo is asking. Empower them for what? Empower them to have power to do what? And the most important thing also is coming in, irrespective of the age of what's a youth, what empowerment is needed. And there's conversation from here that there's empowerment in terms of economic empowerment. There's some little talk on empowerment in terms of political empowerment. But I still also believe that the biggest empowerment that the younger people need to know is the empowerment in terms of knowledge. Right knowledge, not education in schools, but the right knowledge. Because if they don't have the right knowledge, they'll view success, they'll view whatever you call a success, not in the lenses of who we are, but in the lenses of what the world told them to be, or the world tells them to. That's why what Sister Tapo is saying, they think that having a big car, 10 fleets of cars is actually being successful. They think that building a big mansion is being successful. Are we empowering our youth who run away from Africa to go develop other countries? So it's very important, but also the element that is coming in is before we empower, do we have the knowledge and the skill to empower? And I see the suggestions are also being put in the chat, like we can have community clubs. There are issues also of passing the skills. For example, I do most of the physical manual skills. Barber shop, shoe repair, so many other things I do. Do we pass this knowledge also to the younger generation so that they can have some skills to survive? Because people think that once you have a degree, job is automatic. When it fails to be there, we have a society where our younger people are just complaining all around, up and down. And again, as Brother Ifo is saying, the needs are different based on the class or the category you're in. So let's hear from Sister Myra. Anything you want to say? Sister Myra?
No, I'm just listening. Thank you, Brother Pigeon.
Thank you. Sister Myra? Sister Amma? Sister Amma?
Hello, I'm also just listening and taking in what everybody is saying. Thank you.
Sister Sharon?
Yeah, greetings all. Yeah, I don't really have any much to add, but I salute everything that is it Sister Tapoa mentioned. Yeah, she gave some really valid contributions there. Well, as did everyone else, but yeah, I've got nothing more to add to it. Thanks.
You're lucky?
Give thanks, blessed everyone at large. Give thanks also for the great words we heard today from the elders, the queens of Africa. Yeah. No, only thing I'll just say is that we need to militarize the youth. It's no use having youths running up and down Africa. No solution, no plan of action, no organization that is fixed on industrializing Africa. No organization of womanhood, sisterhood, how to take care of the young girls. No women role models, the black culture. So we need to organize the ground forces in Africa. These youths we see running up and down, they're running up and down because there's no one who's leading them. And of course, leadership has to come from the older generation down to the last, which is these youths. Because I can recall for myself as a youth, our difficulty, the difficulties we're facing when we have meetings with older people in Africa. Yeah, it's always difficult because they are pessimistic in a way. They don't want to be radical. Kind of like reminds me of the time of Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois, how they started to split because of the ideology behind Pan-Africanism, where Marcus Garvey was more pragmatic, radical, and Du Bois being a colored, for lack of a better term, he wanted negotiations with the whites, compromising of policies, reforming, etc., etc. When we know the brother Stokely Carmichael, he said that reforming is like building on top of a foundation that has collapsed. It's not the same as a revolutionary action where we destroy the whole foundation of white colonialism and start over. So by closing, I think the problem we have as Africans now in our mindset is the fear of change. We fear to take the Traore away. That is what's keeping us back. Otherwise, our ancestors are on our side. They're waiting for us to take action. And the youths, they are the ground forces to deal with anything that is an obstruction to Pan-Africanism. Thank you.
Thank you, General Anunnaki. Sawindok? Sawindok? Okay. Brother Kwajo, I know you are here and you left a bit. Tell you come in and contribute anything to this conversation.
Fortunately, I'm not in a good position to speak. Sorry. Thank you so much. I have enjoyed the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Elder Glenn, I know you said you came late, but do you have any word of wisdom to this conversation of the youth empowerment? What do you think from your point of view? Were you empowered when you are youth, Elder? And even we've been having conversation on what is that youth. Is the age what defines youth or anything of that sort? Elder Glenn?
Clearly, the youths are the inheritors of those work that put in by those before them. But I think that we kid ourselves as elders if we believe that we can just simply say this is the way to do things, because clearly not only do things change so much over time, it's the right of every generation to decide how they will deal with current status. There is no one pope fit all. So we must respect that, even if we think that youth are getting it wrong. We must act as guide and help, but we mustn't believe that our way is the way. I think the generation gap will create its own inertia. But I think it's also important to say that most parents do not want their children to go through the struggles that they've been through. And I think that's something that we're not quite come to terms with. Sometimes activists believe that their children should be activists as well. It won't necessarily happen that way, and we mustn't pretend or demand that it should be. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who want to come in or come back to this topic? Before I also bring my thoughts towards the final point of this, we are having 14 minutes to go. Okay. Basically, from a point of view, is that when we discuss about the Pan-African agenda, and the key things in the Pan-African agenda today is the total liberation of Africa, the unification of Africa, and the development of Africa. Of course, you have the extension of reparations, repatriations, and restitution. But is the current generation doing enough to pass over the struggle to the coming generation? Because some of the struggles that you have today is a lifetime struggle. But there must be a generation that must always take the mantle. Whatever the older generation do today, they must have picked it from the other generation of Marcus Garvey and the rest. Are we preparing our younger people, or are we empowering our younger people to push the struggle for the liberation of Africans as a people in this global society? Or are we pushing our generation to seek integration and assimilation, to be accepted in the global system? Are we doing deliberately to inform our generations about who they are? In the old times, the elders could sit down and give stories. Those stories were education. They were educational because they could tell the younger generation on who was their heroes, the struggles of the society, what they went through, and that knowledge was passed down. That knowledge was power. Because when the coming generation knew who they were, the stories about their ancestors, they really got empowered to see the world from their lens. When that gap means the Western education will teach our people, and they'll only master that which they've been taught. And you know, they say they can never teach you to be powerful, because they know when you're powerful, you'll overthrow them. So today we have so many of us who are trying to assimilate, to integrate, and so many people who don't even care about what is Pan-Africanism. I had to attend a conversation somewhere in a debate of the universities just 2 months ago, and the topic was whether Pan-Africanism is still relevant today. And some of the youth say they don't think it's relevant. That was thing that was fought then with the Marcus Garvey and the rest. And when we got independent, Pan-Africanism is not anything relevant today. Look at the society we have today. Are we really seeing that the younger people are going to do something better for the continent? We are going to lose them. Look at their culture, their lifestyle, the type of education, the type of interest they have, empowering them enough. Look at what they consider success. So, comrades, is upon us. Sometimes when I find myself in some of these spaces, I might consider myself youth based on the so-called definition of Western society. But sometimes I sit back and ask myself, where are my fellow age mates in this conversation? But because life is also pushing us so hard, at age of 26, 27, you've got a family already in the continent. You have to go to hustle early in the morning, come back in the evening, feed your family. What time do you have to listen to this conversation, to get informed, or to try to do anything else? If you get your employment, you are fully committing to your employer. What time do you have to think about liberation, to think about unification, to think about development? And what type of development do you think is development? Development to you is big highways, big cars, big houses, and big whatever, and you call yourself a developed country or developed nation. So I think we must be very deliberate. If we have to empower our youth, and we're empowering our youth to help us fulfill what it's very dear to us as Pan-Africans. You see, young people like, of course, in some age like Traore, Thomas Sankara, he still has so many people who are below age 30 or 35 who join struggle and help contribute. But today, the laws of our countries, the society itself, like I'm trying to run a campaign here called Not Too Young to Run for Office. Everybody don't think that young people should even occupy offices, job situations, even in government. So these are things we are facing as a continent. But we must design an empowerment on our terms, on what we want as empowerment and what we expect as an end goal of that. But the biggest struggle today is that the continent that do not see itself, young people who do not know the continent, don't know themselves, and think that what is good outside there is what is good. So we have a challenge. It's to all of us that we must empower our youth, but in a right way, and for us to orient them to what we want. Of course, as Glenn says, you will be an activist, but you don't expect your child to be an activist. You will wish to be an activist. But do you still have some responsibility to guide the generation? And I believe we have. And what guidance are we giving them? Are we telling them go study in London and Oxford so that you get a good job and stay out there? You don't go to these public schools around here. Don't go study in universities here. Go out there so that you can be a professor from Harvard and the rest of the things. Go out there, go be an engineer, and nobody want to be a community health service worker. Nobody want to take care of the society. So this is our responsibility of this generation, that we must help pass some knowledge to the generation that's coming. So the generation that's coming can have something to pass to the other generation, so that we can have right empowerment and we can attain what we want as a continent. That will be my final thoughts on this. In case there's any other person who has something to say, please feel free. Brother, also come in.
Yeah, you see, as you are talking, and then I look at what Brother Glenroy also said, together with Elder Sam, you see, there is a gap that we need to know whether to close it or to leave it. I remember Kofi Annan, I think he came here. It was a youth, International African Youth program, and he told them that, look, do not let the elders like pressure you, but you have the independence. You can determine your future and those things. It did make sense, but what I see is that we can't leave that gap. I mean, just open. At least our every generation has the responsibility to hand over a baton. That one, it depends on what kind of baton are we handing over. What we have seen from the past, which we have also inherited, is what we deplore as as the first presenter mentioned, dependency, being subordinate to the Western world, accepting anything that comes, not willing to actually dig into our own soil. You see, so we have inherited this, and at a point, not necessarily through education, but through certain other ways, our eyes are open to see that, look, it is not actually what we should expect, and there's something wrong. And then in that state, we feel that no, we cannot let that the previous pass through us to another generation. We need to stop it somewhere so that the generation coming, or those we are handing over the baton, actually take something that is going to help stabilize this continent and not be seen as a continent that is like, I mean, I don't like using the word dark, but for now, let's just use it that way. You see, so how do we also go about all these things? It's the tension from the discussion now. I see that, okay, we don't need to do anything, or do we need to do something? But personally, I feel that we need to do something, not because we want to influence the future, but at least we want to stop something that also could be bad for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Sam. Sister Mera, please prepare to give your close for us this session for today. Sister Mera. Elder Sam, please.
Brother Pigeon and everybody on the platform, I don't want to spoil the discussion today. My little input is, you know, Brother Pigeon and brothers and sisters, if we can take some of our previous discussion, and these range from all the classes, philosophy and the Saturday studies, and in mind I have a study where we talked in conclusion, and Brother Kwame summarized that our task is to abolish, replace, defend, and maintain. If you take that study, the study that this Matani did yesterday, and today's study, and I think there would be several others, and package them in one global picture, I think we've got the blueprint for what needs to be done or what we should be doing. And if we take this not only to our individual people and associates and colleagues and friends, and basically starting with our families, I think we have exactly what we are saying we are doing. And let's grow this study group. 14 people for the rest of the continent is too little, and it means we are not spreading the word. We are not inviting people to these studies. We should do that. And if we take these and try to translate them into our local languages, because this is the challenge, that we don't reach the grassroots, our people who are really at where the tire and the road meet. These are the people who we must really be talking to, instead of talking to ourselves only. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder. Sister Mera, please have the summary of this conversation and maybe bring this conversation towards the end. Sister Mera, I'll be sharing the topic for the next week.
Brother Pigeon, I'll just thank everyone that has come and shared their thoughts on today's topic, and I'll remind the whole class that we have Kiswahili on Tuesdays, philosophy on Thursdays, and Brother Pigeon will announce next Saturday's topic. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, comrades, for those of us who have shared their thoughts on this. Indeed, we are doing a lot in terms of spreading the information. We will have over 246 people who do receive updates of our meetings directly via their inbox, not in our WhatsApp group, directly there via the inbox. Those are people from what you call our broadcast list, 246. They don't sometimes get interested to come in, so you wonder why. Sometimes we circulate this myself in over 20 groups of Africa, but still people sometimes don't show up. The thing sometimes we ask ourselves is, what's going on? Why are people not interested to have a conversation, to sit like this and share their thoughts, analyze or discuss about the continent? Is it that the current setup keeps us too busy with the work that we forget about some other things that might be very essential to us? Because consistently we realize that we have consistent people coming in, irrespective of over 1,000 people see the invite. And I think it's very clear that some of this conversation may not be very popular to so many of us. And that's the beginning of starting to understand that maybe we are losing the road. If so many are not interested to have this conversation or to think about this way, then we are almost losing. And in fact, it should tell us that we need to do a lot to bring people back. When we share this on our YouTube channel, we share link widely to over 200 and something people. Only 10 people, 15 people, or 20 people view this. But we've kept record of all our conversation for the last 3 years. All records are available on our YouTube channel. In fact, I've uploaded over 300 videos of all our recordings so that they're there in history for somebody to always refer to them. Every day we do this without a fail. We've never failed to meet on Thursday, never failed to meet on Saturday, and never failed to do what we do. But yes, I think we need to start having an arm of distributing this information. Probably need something like regional people who can help us, regional coordinators. When you have links of our meeting, we send it to South Africa. People in that region, somebody can spread it to different countries, Lesotho and all parts of SADC. Somebody can represent in all this part of EAC, so that we can have many people starting to have this conversation. Because this conversation is eye-opening. This conversation is very important. And this conversation is what will inform our people. What we discuss here is not in class. What we discuss here is not in the degree we have. It's not in the PhD we have. It's not in the diploma we have. This is what we call self-education. And as Malcolm X says, no one is dangerous than somebody who has self-educated himself, because he knows what he wants and he knows what is needed. So we will never stop this. But we need only to discuss on how we think on how we can escalate our impact. But I believe that the moment we stop talking, we'll start fighting. So let's keep talking. And we believe that the moment we keep talking, everybody will be coming up to help us so that we can join the struggle. But yes, we will be discussing about Pan-African solidarity. And we're looking at how do we work together. Because the solidarity amongst the Pan-Africans is very essential at this particular moment. Everybody's doing their pieces. But how do we join hands? How do we support each other in solidarity? How do we work together? Because we live as Africans, but not as brothers. Everybody's in their own line. But even in our own line, how do we come together to support each other? In a community, every family has their family. But when there's any burial in one of the house, the whole community come together for that family to help. Are we really looking to that direction to start working together as Pan-Africans? That when there's something somewhere, we come together and solve it. That's the type of solidarity we are looking forward to have a conversation next Saturday, and we invite members to join us. But as this ends, key things are very important. That one is, what type of empowerment do we want? And empowerment for what? For power. Power to do what? Those are very important things. And it's also coming out clearly that we, or the older generation, must also inform ourselves and deliberately inform the generation that's coming, so that it's not to dictate their future, but to arm them with the knowledge, so that when they approach this so-called global society, they know who they are, they know what's good for them, and they can walk away or a path we want for the continent. So this is upon all of us, and we will try to do this. Probably Brother Usu, I know you do more of articles. If you can help us have some article on this, follow-up of this conversation, that will be very appreciated, so that at least we can look at what we want out of this conversation. Having said that, comrades, I'll share the recordings of this week, next week, and when I share them, please feel free to share them with your friends. feel able to share them with their families. And we'll continue our conversation for Thursdays. We are at a very interesting point on Thursday. We have been looking at the issue of African nationalism as it was considered as perversion and how neocolonialism was considered as a virtue. In our next class, we're going to look at Renaissance, African Renaissance. Because when neocolonialism is considered as a virtue, that's what you do today. Everybody run to London, everywhere else. That's neocolonialism. Everybody want to be proud to speak English, good English. That's neocolonialism. Everybody want to put on clothes from Italy and the rest. Everybody want to listen to songs from wherever. That is neocolonialism. Indirectly, we are taking neocolonialism as a virtue. And African nationalism or our Africanness is a perversion. We need to correct ourselves. So thank you very much, comrades, for this engaging conversation. And I want to say that may you have a blessed evening and let's meet again next week. Thank you all and bye for now.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Good
much.
night, all.
Thank you.